Welcome to my channel. Today, I want to share with you a story about love that faltered in silence, emotional wounds that words couldn't heal, and the quiet devastation of feeling unseen by the one you trust most. Let's dive right into it. I remember the first time Leah opened up to me. We were sitting on a rooftop in the middle of downtown Chicago, sipping coffee out of paper cups, while the wind tried to convince us it was still fall. It was the kind of night where city lights feel like they're blinking just for you. Leah was staring out at the skyline, her eyes unreadable, and then, almost too casually, she said, "I don't talk about my past. But for some reason, I want to with you." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. That wasn't the first time I was speechless around her. Leah had this presence. She didn't ask for attention. She just commanded it. I met her in November 2023. During my clinical rotations, she was doing her psychology internship at the same hospital. We bumped into each other in the hallway, literally, and ended up grabbing lunch together the same day. From there, things moved fast. We were both busy with school, rotations, and barely had time for sleep. But somehow, we found each other in pockets of time. Midnight ramen, early morning walks, sitting quietly in her car after a long shift. Leah made the mundane feel significant, but with that closeness came her past, and the pain she carried like a second skin. Leah wasn't the type to cry. She didn't fall apart. But when she started sharing, it was raw. She'd talk about how her father walked out on her family when she was 10, how her mom spiraled into addiction and forced her to grow up too fast. She told me about the friend she trusted with everything, who turned around and humiliated her online, about a therapist who betrayed her trust, about nights she slept in her car, too proud to ask anyone for help. And I just listened. I didn't interrupt. I didn't offer advice. I didn't say I'm sorry, because she told me early on she hated that phrase. "It's lazy," she said. "People just say it to feel better about hearing your pain. It's never for you, it's for them." So, when she shared, I told her, "You're heard." That's all. Just those two words. But apparently, that wasn't enough. Last night, we had a fight, if you could call it that. Leah had just told me something dark. Something about a time in high school I won't repeat out of respect. When she finished, I looked at her, trying to find the right words, and I just said, "You're heard." Her expression changed immediately. She stood up, walked to the other side of the room, arms crossed. "That's all you ever say?" she snapped. "I'm bearing my soul to you, and all you give me is that." "I'm not trying to be dismissive," I told her. I don't know what else to say. "You told me you didn't want pity or fake sympathy." She turned to me, her eyes glistening, not angry, but hurt. "Nathan, I don't want you to fix it. I just want to feel like you're with me when I go there." I didn't know what that meant. I still don't. She calmed down eventually. We sat on the couch for a long time, not saying anything. Then she whispered, "If you make me feel overlooked one more time, we're done." We went to bed on okay terms. She curled up beside me, held my hand, and I felt her breath slow down as she fell asleep. But I couldn't sleep, not with that ultimatum echoing in my mind. What scares me the most isn't losing her. It's that I might mess up again without even knowing it. And she said she won't warn me next time. Leah wasn't easy to understand, but God, was she easy to fall for. She had this mix of toughness and vulnerability that made you want to lean in closer. Like if you listened hard enough, maybe you'd unlock the part of her she never let anyone see. I remember how, during our first month together, she told me that trust wasn't something she gave away. It was something people had to earn repeatedly, even if I trust you today. She once told me, "Tomorrow, I might not." That's just how my brain works. I used to think she was exaggerating. But I learned quickly that she wasn't. Every day with Leah felt like walking a thin, invisible line. Most days, I was fine. Some days, I tripped over something I didn't even see. Take the time I bought her favorite tea on my way home. I remembered the brand, the flavor, everything. But I got the wrong size. She didn't say anything at first, just smiled and thanked me. But later that night, she said, "You don't really pay attention, do you?" It wasn't about the tea. It never was. I learned that with Leah. Every detail was a test. Every word I said or didn't say. Every look I gave or avoided, but not in a manipulative way. It was more like She needed to be reassured that I wanted to know her, that I saw her, and sometimes I did, but sometimes I didn't. We had a good run through December, lots of late-night talks, cuddling on her tiny couch watching true crime documentaries, laughing about the absurdity of medical school. She'd quiz me on anatomy while I tried to distract her with kisses. For a while, things felt easy, light, but the cracks started showing in January. That's when she started having trouble sleeping again. She'd wake up gasping, then pretend she was fine. I offered to stay up with her, but she'd shake her head and say, "It's not your job to fix me." And maybe that's where I kept messing up. I was trying too hard not to fix her, and somehow ended up doing nothing instead. There was one night in mid-January I can't forget. We were driving back from her mom's place, an hour outside the city. The visit hadn't gone well. Her mom had relapsed again. Leah didn't say a word the whole drive. I tried to play soft music. I even asked if she wanted to talk. She just stared out the window. When we got back to her place, she sat on the floor and said quietly, "When I was 13, I came home and found her passed out with a needle still in her arm. I thought she was dead." I froze. My throat closed up. I wanted to say something, anything, but all that came out was, "You're heard." She didn't react. She just nodded once and went to the bathroom. Locked the door. I sat there on the couch, staring at the wall, wondering if I'd failed her again. That night, she didn't sleep beside me. She slept on the couch, said it was because she had a headache, but I knew better. Since then, things have felt different, like there's a timer counting down, and I don't know how much time I have left. Still, I'm not giving up. Leah is worth the effort. She's worth the confusion, the second-guessing, the trying, because underneath all of it, her walls, her fire, her silence, there's someone who just wants to be loved without feeling like a burden. I just wish I knew how to love her right. It happened on a Thursday. I remember the sky was dull and gray, like the city was holding its breath. I was running late getting out of my clinical rotation, my phone buzzing in my pocket with messages from Leah. "Leah? Can we talk? Leah, I need you to come over. Leah, now, please." I dropped everything, grabbed my coat, skipped the train, called a rideshare, and headed straight to her place. My gut told me something was off. When I walked in, she was sitting on the floor in her hoodie, knees pulled to her chest. She didn't look at me, just said, "I had a panic attack at work today." In the bathroom, I dropped my bag and knelt beside her. "Are you okay? What happened?" She shrugged. "I don't know. I was in a meeting and suddenly I couldn't breathe. I wanted to pull her into my arms, but I froze." I kept thinking, "Don't say anything wrong. Don't do anything wrong." So I just asked, "What do you need right now?" She looked at me, her eyes sharp. "Nathan, I just told you I had a panic attack, and your first reaction is to ask me what I need." My heart dropped. I just didn't want to assume. She stood up suddenly. "God, you always do this. You play it safe. You act like you care, but it's like you're just watching me fall apart from behind glass." "That's not true," I said quickly, my voice cracking. "I care so much. Leah, I just don't want to say the wrong thing, but silence is the wrong thing." She snapped. "You think standing there like a statue makes me feel seen. You think hearing you're heard makes me feel held." I was speechless again. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. Just like every time before, she shook her head. "Do you even want to know me, Nathan? Or are you just here because I'm a puzzle you can't solve?" That cut deeper than I expected. I looked at her, really looked, and saw someone at her breaking point. Not angry, just exhausted, tired of carrying herself and hoping someone might help. "I'm trying," I whispered. "I really am." She laughed bitterly. "You've had months to figure it out." Then came the words I'll never forget. "If you make me feel invisible one more time, I'm done." There it was. No metaphor, no softness, just the line drawn in the sand. I didn't sleep that night. Leah did, though she curled into me eventually, maybe out of habit. But her fingers didn't wrap around mine like they used to. And when she breathed, it wasn't slow and steady. It was like she was bracing herself in her dreams. I stared at the ceiling, hearing those words again and again in my head, wondering how close I was to losing the only person who ever made me want to be better without asking me to change who I was. But maybe that's the problem. Maybe she was asking, I just didn't hear it in time. After that night, things changed. Not dramatically. There was no big blowout, no bags packed by the door, but the silence between us grew louder, heavier, like a third presence in the room. Leah didn't pull away physically. She still kissed me goodbye, still texted me good luck before my exams, still held my hand when we watched TV. But something was missing, and I felt it in every small interaction. She didn't tell me stories anymore. She used to talk for hours about childhood memories, random thoughts, deep fears. Now, when I asked about her day, I got summaries. It was fine, nothing special, just tired. And I couldn't blame her. I had failed the one thing she needed, to be understood without having to explain herself 100 times. I started researching how to support someone with trauma. I read articles, watched videos, even joined a forum anonymously, and something kept coming up, something I had never considered. Validation isn't about fixing, it's about feeling with them. That sentence hit me like a train. I kept replaying all the times she opened up, and how I'd responded, always measured, careful, controlled, like I was afraid of her pain, like I was standing on the edge of a pool, watching her drown and offering a towel instead of jumping in. I thought I was being supportive by not reacting, by staying calm, but all I'd done was build a wall between us, brick by brick, made of good intentions and missed signals. So I decided to try something different. It was a Sunday afternoon. We were at a bookstore she loved. Leah was flipping through a psychology book, and I asked if she wanted to grab coffee after She nodded, but didn't smile. That used to be automatic. At the cafe, we sat by the window. I didn't bring up anything heavy. Just talked about a patient I had trouble with, a nurse who'd made me laugh, and then, she said quietly, I had another nightmare last night. I looked up, met her eyes, and instead of shrinking back or nodding solemnly, I leaned in and said, Do you want to tell me about it? She hesitated, but then she did. She told me she dreamt she was back in her childhood home, alone, that every room was filled with smoke, and no matter how loud she screamed, no one came. That when she finally opened the front door to escape, the world outside was gone, just white noise and empty space. Her hands were shaking, her coffee untouched. I didn't say I'm sorry. I didn't say you're heard. I reached across the table, took her hand, and whispered, That sounds terrifying. I can't imagine how that must have felt, but I'm really grateful you told me. She looked at me for a long time. No tears, no sudden breakdown, just a soft exhale. And for the first time in weeks, she smiled. Not big, not bright, but it was real. That night, she pulled me close in bed, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she said, I missed you, not because I'd been gone, but because I finally showed up. It didn't get better overnight. There were still moments I got it wrong. Like when I asked too many questions after she looked overwhelmed, or when I touched her arm too quickly during a heavy conversation. But now, Leah saw something she hadn't before. She saw me trying, and I think that made all the difference. In early March, we went to a small lake 2 hours outside the city. No phones, no work, just a weekend to breathe. We brought books, snacks, a blanket we laid out by the water. The air was still cold, but the sun made it bearable. She lay next to me, staring at the sky. You know what's weird? She said. I turned to her. What? I used to be afraid of quiet. Silence used to mean someone was about to leave, or yell, or hurt me. But now, with you, it feels okay. I swallowed hard. That means a lot. Leah. She turned her head toward me. You're still not perfect at this. You know. I laughed. I figured. But I see the effort now. I see that you listen with your heart, not just your ears. There was a pause. Then she added, and I think that's the first time I've ever really believed someone was trying to stay. That moment stayed with me. Because it wasn't just about her trusting me, it was about her starting to trust the world again. Even just a little. The more I listened without fear, the more she spoke without hesitation. She told me about a boy who used to make fun of her in middle school until she started skipping lunch altogether. About the time her uncle tried to force her to lie to CPS to keep her mom out of trouble. About the teacher who noticed, but never said anything. She told me about the therapist who made her feel like she was broken, and the one she finally found, years later, who helped her realize she wasn't, and I stopped being scared of saying the wrong thing. I just stayed present. I mirrored her breathing. I held her when she cried. I didn't fill the silence with words. I filled it with presence. It wasn't easy. Loving someone with trauma never is. Sometimes she'd cancel plans last minute. Sometimes she'd shut down in the middle of a joke and stare into space. Sometimes she'd ask me if I really liked her, out of nowhere, on a Tuesday morning while brushing her teeth. But I started to understand that these weren't signs of insecurity. They were scars, and you don't yell at scars to disappear. You kiss them gently, over time until they stop feeling like open wounds. We weren't perfect. We still had rough nights. I still made mistakes. But now, when I did, Leah didn't pull away. She said, "That hurt, but I know you didn't mean to." And somehow, those words meant more than "I love you," because they meant she was beginning to feel safe. Spring came slowly to Chicago, the kind of slow where one day the snow melts just enough for the grass to show, and the next, you're walking hand in hand with someone you love, wondering when the cold finally loosened its grip. Leah and I were better. Not fixed, not perfect, but better. There were still moments, flashbacks she didn't see coming, triggers I didn't recognize fast enough, long pauses in conversations when I knew she was deciding whether to speak or retreat. But now, I didn't panic. I didn't search for perfect responses. I stayed, and maybe that's what she needed all along. We were lying on my bed one night, rain tapping at the window, our limbs tangled under a cheap blanket. She was tracing circles on my chest with her finger, half asleep. Then, out of nowhere, she whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I almost didn't know how to respond. My throat tightened, not because I was sad, but because I finally understood the weight of what it meant to love her. "You never gave me a reason to," I said. She looked up. "I gave you 100. I smiled. "You gave me 100 reasons to stay." She didn't say anything after that, just kissed my shoulder and closed her eyes. Loving Leah wasn't easy. It required patience, humility, and a willingness to unlearn everything I thought I knew about being supportive. I had to throw away the idea of being the fixer, and instead become someone who sits with the brokenness. I had to realize that sometimes love doesn't look like grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes love looks like showing up again and again and again, even when the other person isn't sure they deserve it, especially then. Now, when Leah tells me something painful, I don't scramble for words. I just look into her eyes and say, "That must have been so hard. I'm here." Sometimes that's all it takes. Not magic, not perfection, just presence. And in those quiet, tender moments, I realize something. I didn't save Leah, but I learned how to stand beside her without fear, without shame, and with every intention to keep showing up. And maybe that's the kind of love that lasts. Thanks for tuning in to Reddit Stories. New tales drop daily drama, love, or ghostly glories. Hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you won't miss the next story we tell. Got thoughts to share? Drop them below. We read them all, just so you know.